Hey guys, this is Uncle Greg. I wanted to take over the intros this week, and
Surprise!
tired of Evan getting to do all the intros. So, wanted to let you guys know about a few things that we have coming up. We've got the
Hello, this is Greg.
Expo coming up. Remember in October. If you guys use the Turf Nerds promo code, currently rate is at $30, and with the Turf Nerds promo code, you get it for 15 entrance fees. There's also a prayer breakfast that's going to be going on. It's with Trades for Christ.
Really?
And that prayer breakfast is going to be at the Crown Plaza Hotel. It's doors open at 6:30 a.m. And Mike Singletary, Hall of Fame linebacker from the Chicago Bears, is going to be the keynote speaker there. So that should be a great show for a great prayer breakfast for you guys to be able to attend. I understand the food is excellent at this show or at this breakfast. And then Ezra from Green Frog Web Design. We want you to reach out to him. He's got that program going right now for $99 a month for you guys. It's a single page website. Allows you to get on the first page of a Google search.
Yeah.
And that's important because nobody goes to the second and nobody really goes to the third page. So make sure you guys are talking to Ezra and get you on that front page of the show. Great show we have going on right now is coming up is with Steve Bonesteel. He is a insurance agent. It's a guy we wanted to get on for a while. He's got some great information for you guys that we have a lot of guys asking questions on.
Hey, it's Aaron with the Mowing in the Dark Lawn Care Podcast.
Hey, this is Tony's Lawn Care Talk.
Hey guys, Cameron here with the Lawn Care Life in Missouri.
Hey guys, this is Dan White with Lawn Care Unscripted.
What up, guys? It's Phil with Phil's Lawn Care.
And you're listening to the Turf Nerds.
Greg.
I've been really looking forward to this show. And guys, you know, if you're in the lawn and landscaping industry, you need insurance. I had commercial insurance for my business for the longest time, but I didn't have general liability because I didn't know. And Greg, praise God for local lawn care Facebook pages. And Greg was on and he ran into this guy, Steve Bonesteel. Steve specializes in insurance for the lawn and landscape industry. He's licensed in 20 states, and we're really excited to have him on. So, Steve, welcome to the Turf Nerds Lawn Care Podcast.
Evan, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and spending a little time with us. And Steve, you've always been helpful. You're responsive to calls whenever I reach out to you. You get back with me right away, so we really appreciate that. And especially in our industry, guys, it's important for us to be able to hear back from our insurance guys right away. So if you have an opportunity, you got 20 states that Steve could possibly be able to help you out in. So maybe what we can do on the post is just say which states he's available to do too. So Steve, what types of insurance should every lawn care business have at a minimum?
Yeah, so lawn care and landscaping companies, contractors in general, right? They're a little bit different than some of your other types of businesses, right? You open a store, customers are going to be coming to you, right? But when it comes to contractors, landscaping, lawn care, anything of the sort, you're going to those customer locations. So your risk looks a lot different than just the typical store where someone's going to be coming to you. So just right off the rip, you know, just getting your business started, getting general liability insurance, that's going to be your first starter, right? You know, that essentially, that's where you always got to start. But then with these contractors, with you guys going out into the field, going to locations, how are you getting there? With some sort of vehicle, whether that be, you know, whether it be a van that you could load equipment into, a truck, trailer, what have you, you are taking your equipment, your stuff from one place to another using a vehicle commercially. So that brings in a commercial auto risk as well. So you've got the general liability, you've got commercial auto. What about your tools? What about your equipment? Do you want to replace that stuff if something happens to it? If that trailer gets stolen on the side of the road and you have $15,000 worth of equipment and it's gone all in one foul swoop, you need equipment coverage. And it works differently when it's out in the field than when it's at your shop, when it's at your home. Insurance does not work one and the same. While it's in storage, while it's in location, the main location for your business, coverage ends pretty typically as soon as that goes out into the field. Coverage for that would be called equipment floater coverage, inland marine, sometimes scheduled personal property, business property floater, that type of thing. And then who's doing the work? Are you going to have employees? Do you have people doing the work for you? What about subcontractors? Things like that can bring in the workers' compensation coverage. And I mean, that's basically the basics of every contractor that's going to be doing work. Of course, if you don't have employees, you may or may not need work comp, but that's the basics. That's where we start.
So really, Steve, it sounds like you're talking about like a lot about like a risk here. So what's the real difference between general liability, commercial auto, and workers' comp? I mean, I'm a solo operator. I don't have workers' comp because it's just myself. I do have general liability. Finally got that. I should have got on that sooner. And then I've always had commercial auto. So what's kind of like the trinity difference between all those three?
Yeah, so your general liability, that's going to protect the business against typically like the property damage exposures, but also your personal injury, your advertising injury. You'll imagine we're taking our business out on the Facebook, on the social media. Maybe we think something is really funny at a job site. We take a picture. Maybe our lawn looks beautiful. The neighbor next door, maybe it doesn't look so great. Well, maybe that's because that home was vacant because of your advertisement. Maybe someone broke into that property. Is it a stretch? Yes. Do those things actually happen? Also, yes. And then on the property damage side of thing, that general liability, if your lawnmower catches on fire, it burns the whole front lawn, burns down the garage in someone's property, you're going to need to be able to replace that somehow, some way. And unless you're paying out of pocket, that general liability insurance is what's going to get you covered there. Now, general liability, big difference here. Again, with contractors going from one location to another, you're going out into the field. That's where the commercial auto comes into play. That protects the business or yourself, if you're a sole proprietor, against the risk of bodily injury. If you get in an accident, whether you're at fault, not at fault, depending on your state laws, you have an exposure there. If you get sued, named in a lawsuit, that commercial auto is going to protect not only the business on the liability side for injuries, but also for that physical damage aspect. If you just got that 2024 Ford F-150, you're driving it out to the job, something bad happens, I don't have $70,000 laying around in that finance company. If you financed it, it's going to need that money one way or another. So that's what that commercial auto insurance steps in to do. So essentially that general liability is going to do the actual operations. That commercial auto protects the vehicles, the trailers, getting it from that location to your customer, wherever that job site is.
And that's important too, because a lot of guys, I did it, is how many guys actually have their insurance for their personal line. You know, I'm carrying XYZ auto insurance, but I don't have it but I'm still using my truck with XYZ auto insurance, but it's not my commercial liability, or it's not my commercial insurance on my vehicle. So that creates quite a problem too with those guys when somebody's got two different insurances, their personal line versus their commercial, and the insurance companies won't cover that, right?
Yeah, it's a multifaceted issue, actually, Greg, and it comes into play a couple different ways. So your personal auto insurance is not going to protect. So let's pretend you get into a minor incident. You know, maybe it's going to protect the physical damage of the truck. Maybe the claim slides through, right? If you're using that truck commercially, that personal insurance is not supposed to pay for it. No ifs, ands, and buts really about it, except for very limited cases. But let's pretend that the physical damage maybe gets taken care of it on your personal policy. Sure, we get the truck fixed, right? That's great. But then maybe 6-12 months later, this nasty gram ends up in the mail. You open it up, and now your business is being sued. If you don't have that commercial auto insurance to protect your LLC, your corporation, or yourself as a commercial sole proprietor, when that lawsuit comes around, you're on your own. And that right there is the biggest thing with commercial auto insurance. As soon as you have that LLC and you're operating, as soon as you have that corporation and you're operating, that personal insurance, whether it covers the physical damage of your vehicle or not, is besides the point, because when that lawsuit shows up and there's injuries involved, property damage involved, if that business does not have a proper insurance, you're on your own.
Greg, you muted yourself. Unmute.
All right,
Greg.
I apologize. so much for that. Do you think that's the biggest misconception you hear from small lawn care operators in insurance, or what are some other misconceptions you might see?
It's one of the largest misconceptions, not only in the landscaping and the contractor business, but for all types of businesses, right? Where do you draw that line? Where's the vehicle? Is it really a commercial vehicle if you're only using it maybe once or twice a week for that business? In some cases, no, but in a lot of cases, yeah, and especially for contractors. So that's really one of the largest misconceptions. And the way that often will slip under the cracks or slip through the cracks is for those residential landscapers, those residential contractors, you're not often going to be required to provide those certificates of insurance, that commercial auto with the $1 million limits, right? Those customers probably aren't even going to ask, or they might say, "Hey, are you insured?" And you're going to say, "Yeah, of course I am." And that's the end of the conversation. But if you want to start stepping onto these apartment complexes, these big box stores, right? You want to step up to the next level. You want to go into commercial. Those certificates of insurance, they're going to not make it very far as soon as they see that you don't have that commercial auto coverage, and oftentimes same for the workers' compensation. And not to make things more complicated, but then you've got umbrellas, you've got professional liability. It starts to step up and get very complex once you go into that commercial space.
This has been eye-opening, and that's really good to know of how important it is to have that insurance, Steve. I kind of want to talk about some real-world risks here, because I want to talk about what can go wrong on the job, because what are some of the most common claims you've seen in the lawn care industry? And then with that being said, because these questions all kind of tie in, how does insurance cover damage to a customer's property, like a broken window? I've been in the lawn care business 15 years now. I used to have someone who worked with me for 10 years. And when Zach was edging, he shot a rock at a storm window twice, and that didn't cover that because it was so small. But this is actually last year. I was flip edging, guys, and I shot a rock at a bay window. That was about $850, and praise God that I had insurance, and that covered it, and they covered it right away, and they said that this is fine, this is really low cost, and that my rates wouldn't go up. So what are kind of the common claims, Steve, and how does insurance really cover damage? Because I guess my $850 damage is nothing compared to what you've probably seen.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of everything, but I have to say, if you would have called me and said, "Steve, I broke an $850 window, I need to file a claim," I probably would have told you it's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
You run a landscaping company. So that $850 claim, did it kill your rates? No, of course not. It's not going to be the end of the game, right? You're not going to be out of luck. But imagine maybe later that year, maybe we break a custom bay window, right? One that we can't just go get in a few days from a Home Depot, and we have to get it custom made, $10,000. We get that $850 claim, and now we have that $10,000 claim. You might find yourself in a bad position when that policy comes around for renewal. So yeah, broken windows, when we're talking about common claims, it's up there. The minor property damage, I've seen a lot of vinyl siding claims, and these are typically $500 to $750 claims. And the honest truth is, a lot of people don't know the impact of filing claims, and that's why a lot of policies as well nowadays, they're going to have a $500, $1,000 property damage deductible. It's built-in protection, so you're not filing those small claims. Again, the $500 doesn't matter to the insurance company. It's not going to kill your rates. But we have this phrase in insurance, and it's called frequency often leads to severity. And essentially what that means is a company with $5, maybe $1,000 claims honestly may be much riskier than a company with one $25,000 claim, especially if you're looking maybe over a 5-year course. If we have one every year, it's just a matter of time until we have maybe that $100,000 claim, that $250,000 claim. And that's talking about claims that are paid. And one thing that's interesting, that's really important to bring up for these snow removal contractors, is the claims that don't get paid. So here in Michigan, particularly, it's very complicated. We have some precedent on the books when it goes to the legal system for this. We used to have a couple of different clauses for property owners, right? When someone gets hurt on their premises, there was some level of built-in liability protection if they tried to do the basic things to protect, people on their premises, right? If they hired that contractor showed up, they're doing their job, and someone still slips and falls. There were a lot of cases where they were protected from that liability. But now that open and obvious clause, that had some level of protection, that's been gone for about 18 months here in Michigan. And that essentially puts property owners at massive, massive liability, but they're just going to pass it to the contractor. So the claims that don't get paid, the snow, the slips and falls in the winter, when you don't have the snow removal coverage, general liability insurance by default excludes snow removal, snowplow operations. So if you do not see on your policy a specific listed coverage for snowplow completed operations, someone slips and falls at that gas station, at that store, and you just treated it, you're paying for that claim out of pocket. And that's one of the more frequent claims that I also see in insurance. And that can often be the one that doesn't get paid if you don't have the right insurance. And with people slip and fall, you get those slip and fall attorneys. If you've driven through Metro Detroit, I-94, I-96, you've seen the billboards. Don't tell me you haven't. Every other billboard is a slip and fall attorney.
Well, I slipped and fell when I saw one of those signs, so I don't know. Do I blame them? So
you might need to.
Okay, so what about stolen equipment? Because we talked about that. You had mentioned how insurance changes. So stolen equipment. How does the coverage work for the stuff in your trailer? If I have help, we're going to combine these questions. If I have help, even part-time, do I need workers' comp? And what's the risk of not having proper coverage in place?
Sure. So breaking it down as simple as it can really be, when you're looking at your policy when it comes to property insurance, a lot of business insurance policies, they're going to have a line item that says business personal property, and it's going to be attached to a location address. So it might be your home office, it might be your shop, it might even be a storage facility, right? Those items, that limit that you see there, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, only protects those items while it's on that premises. Once those items leave that location, you have to have a separate type of coverage because BPP, business personal property, that ends. And that's where that inland marine, that equipment floater policy comes into play. And essentially that is for coverage for anything that's leaving your storage location, going into the job site. It could be items in a trailer. It could be small items, small tools, hand tools, equipment. Could be excavators. Could be rented equipment. Every company is going to look a little bit different. And the crazy thing is, when you're looking at a policy, every single policy is going to look a little bit different. For instance, Hanover, has a blanket endorsement where items are covered up to $10,000 per item, $50,000 per occurrence, per loss occurrence. We don't have to list it. We don't have to itemize list. It's just blanket covered, right? But then maybe you go over to Progressive, every single item over $2,000. Maybe we need to list it there. Every policy is a little bit different, but there's a huge difference. And one of the biggest coverage gaps I see is businesses that maybe have $50,000 in business property coverage for their storage location, but then where the actual work is occurring in the field, there's no coverage. And that's going to apply to the items in the trailer, right? So if a trailer gets stolen and everything's in it gets stolen along with it, you're going to need to file a claim. I mean, that right there is one of the most legitimate reasons to file a claim when it comes to business insurance. If you can't operate because all your stuff is gone, that's a big problem. And it happens here in Southeast Michigan where we're at. It happens pretty often. It's actually one of the leading theft things in our area is people coming in, taking the whole trailer, and bada bing, bada boom, they're selling that stuff online. It's hard to trace equipment. It's not like, vehicles, trucks and cars, they have VINs all over the place. This equipment, they take it, they off it for maybe 30% of its actual value, and then it's gone. And then when it comes, so you asked about workers' compensation. So this one's a complicated answer, and it's going to vary depending on your state. A really good example is here in Michigan. You are not legally required to have workers' compensation till you have that full-time employee or 3 part-time employees working a certain amount of time for you. But then you go down to Missouri, in a different state further south.
Missouri.
You have to have workers' compensation if you have any employees, because landscapers are considered a construction trade.
Oh, really?
And the trouble is each state's a little bit different, right? So you need to be very familiar with your state. Where the employee is based out of also can make a difference. If you're a Michigan business and you're hiring out of state workers, you also need to adjust your workers' compensation typically accordingly. And the risk is pretty great. I have had several clients in the state of Michigan receive nastygrams from the state after they canceled their policies, maybe it lapsed for whatever reason. And it's a daily fine of thousands of dollars that you can be fined if you don't have workers' compensation and you were supposed to have it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That's no fun.
Yep. And, one of the crazy things is it's 2025 and it's a wild world out there. But one of the things that we've seen historically in insurance is that when these governmental bureaus, when they get a little bit short on money, all of a sudden, that's when the enforcement of these types of clerical laws start to really uptake, because that's how they're going to collect some of that money back that they've been missing back on. I don't know if it's, factual, right? We did do a statistical analysis, but in talking to colleagues and talking to business owners, they have said for 25 years, this is the cycle that they see, that, maybe for 4 or 5 years, they don't get the nastygrams. They don't hear about their friends in the business getting these fines. And then all of a sudden we'll have a 12, 24-month period where it's boom, boom, boom. You've got a list of businesses getting fined, and it comes out of nowhere, but it could be extremely costly, and it can end a business.
Wow, that would be pretty scary to see those letters come. Can I clarify something with you real quick though? You had said when you take your trailer to the site, you technically, I guess you have different coverages. So if my trailer is stolen in storage, because I have a place that I store my trailer, if my trailer's stolen in storage versus somebody stealing my truck or my trailer when I'm out working, that's going to be two different insurances on that?
So if we're talking about trailers, actually no. So trailers is different from other types of equipment. So trucks and trailers are almost always exclusively going to be covered on your commercial auto policy. So that doesn't necessarily matter if it was stolen from the storage location or the job site, as long as it's properly listed, as long as it has the physical damage, the comp coverage there in that case, you're going to be covered. Now the items inside of it, the mowers, the hand tools, that's where the difference comes into play.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, Steve, we talked about, so basically the risk of not having proper coverage is it's going to cost you, basically, right? Like, you don't have proper coverage and stuff, you're going to end up paying, right?
Yeah, eventually it will catch up to you. You could run 3 years and never have a problem, right? And then you get yourself into one situation, and then the money that you saved yourself by not having insurance, it could all be gone just in a blink of an eye.
So we're talking about insurance here. Let's talk some dollars. You can give some general, because that's what most guys probably think about this. Like, what's this going to cost me? How much does basic coverage usually cost for a sole operator versus a crew-based company? Like, do you have any ballpark numbers that you can give us?
Yeah, it's typically in insurance, it's typically a dangerous game to give pricing estimates, right? But we can give some pretty general ranges. For those owner-operator type businesses, if we're just talking general liability, right? Just the basic starting policy, you're going to be looking at somewhere about $750, maybe $1,250, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. It's going to depend on where you're at, what you're doing, that type of thing. Now, that's just the liability end. If you need that property coverage, that equipment coverage, things might look a little bit different. In general, however much items that you're going to insure, $50,000 of property coverage is going to cost a lot more than $5,000 of property coverage, right? So the more you insure, the more it's going to cost. The big question that comes up a lot is, how much is the commercial auto insurance going to cost? And that, especially in some states like Michigan, is the bulk of the cost. On average here in Michigan, the low end pricing for a vehicle for owner operator, probably about $1,500, maybe $2,000 a year. Sometimes we see a little bit less. It just really depends on the vehicle, the driver, right? But typically, once you start getting into larger, 3, 4, 5 different vehicles, on average, you're going to pay about $1,500 to $2,500 if you have that full comp and collision, the quote unquote full coverage insurance, as they say. We don't like that phrase in the insurance industry. It's kind of one of those things that isn't really a thing, but we'll use it today to keep it simple.
The full coverage, it's always fun. Just as a quick backup, though, I have coverage on my mower, for example, and versus my homeowner's or not my homeowner, my personal lines on my vehicle. If I get in an accident with my car, it's a $10,000 vehicle, and I'm sorry, you're insurance industry, so I know you get people mad at you. The insurance company says, well, we'll give you $5,000 for that car. That's all it's worth. But on my mower, I've got, I think when you and I set it up, I said, well, I bought the mower for $12,000, and you said, okay, let's cover it for $12,000. Does that mean I'm going to still get the $12,000 if somebody stole my mower, for example? Or is it just going to be based on hours on the mower and other factors? Because mowers obviously only go by hours; they don't go by mileage and such. Does that make sense? Is that question?
It makes sense, and the answer, it's very convoluted, just like many things in insurance. So it's going to depend on the meat and potatoes of the policy, right? Every policy is a little bit different. Going back to Hanover, for instance, right? They have a very specialty policy. So items that are 5 years or maybe 3 years of age are automatically covered up to replacement value. So if you have a loss in that first 3 years, you get that full value back, that full $12,000 in your example.
Okay.
With this particular policy, after 3 years, it's going to step down to an actual cash value basis. And then it's going to be more so that essentially actual cash value, when we're talking insurance, truly is replacement costs minus depreciation. So it's going to depend on the mileage, or in this case, the hours, the condition, those types of things. Every policy is a little different. Some are only actual cash value. Some are replacement cost only. Some are also what's called stated value, where you can decide how much you're going to insure it for. As long as it's not more than what it's actually worth within reason, you're going to get that amount. You might pay more for that coverage, but there's going to be differences between each and every single policy. And that's why people love insurance, because it's not a single answer.
Okay. Yeah, I just kind of wondered about that. So what affects how much a business pays for insurance then? I think you just said there are a number of factors that would be location, equipment, revenue. I know that if, you asked me how much how much I was expecting to make this year versus last year. So how much does that play a factor in your insurance as well? Because you got more exposure technically, right?
Yeah, so for contractors and basically all types of contractors, your policy cost is going to be based on what you're doing, how much of that you're doing, and then also who's doing that for you. Is it a subcontractor? Is it an employee or a 1099 kind of a sub that's not really an independent contractor, also not a subcontractor? All those questions come into play. But essentially, a business that only has $50,000 in payroll is going to pay a lot less than that business that has $500,000 of payroll. And that's essentially how your policy comes together. So the more that you have, the more high risk that it is, the higher that your price will go. Same thing with property coverage, of course, as well. The more that you insure, the higher that price will go. The interesting difference is that a lot of people don't know is, while I might ask you how much the business is making in a year, that gross revenue number, it's not necessarily for your liability rating. It's often going to be for your business income coverage, right? If that shop burns down and you can't operate, you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for the shop to come back online, or get a replacement short-term lease, buy that new equipment. You need that insurance coverage, that business income coverage, the extra expense coverage to keep your business running while you're not able to get out there and go do the work yourself.
So basically, Steve, you're saying it's going to, it affects how much people pay is just the cost if you have more stuff. Like, I totally get that. So for these bigger companies and even ourselves, how should someone shop for insurance without getting overwhelmed and under insured? And is it better to bundle all policies into one provider? And this is what I really like about Greg. Greg was even telling me, keep shopping your insurance, because I was complaining like a couple of years ago, man, they keep jacking up my rates. And what I like about you, Steve, I mean, you insure over 20 different states, is so you got me for the commercial auto and general liability, but then we finally got on my home insurance and my wife's van, because last year you had said that rate was kind of it was too competitive and you just didn't want to get me for my business. But that's what I really appreciate. But how should people kind of shop this without being overwhelmed? And then should we all bundle everything together?
every situation is going to be a little bit different, right? For you, it worked out really great that not only is your business all with one insurance carrier, but your personal insurance is all with one insurance carrier too. But for a lot of businesses, you might have workers' compensation with Liberty Mutual. You might have commercial auto with Travelers. You could have general liability with Fremont, Grange, Westfield. Every situation is going to be a little bit different. Oftentimes, it's nice to have all of your policies with one provider. But in the world of commercial insurance, multi-policy discounts, while they are technically a thing with a few companies, in most cases, it really isn't a thing. Your pricing is very custom fit to your business. One of the things that we didn't mention when we're talking about pricing is claim history. And the biggest thing that I like to remind people is the pricing that you get when you have no claims on your business over the last 3 to 5 years is going to be some of your most competitive pricing opportunities out there. As soon as you start stacking claims on, that's when those opportunities start to go away. It is so important to keep that claim history down whenever possible, especially with those small claims. But in general, how do you shop around? It's really, you just have to find that trusted provider. If you really want to invest in your business, if it's really something that's keeping you up at night, you need to find that insurance agent that really specializes in business insurance, right? For me, I write about 90% plus business insurance. I try not to touch personal lines. If I really don't have to, I'll do it for the business owners, right? That's how we did it for you.
Oh yeah, good.
But I would prefer not to do the personal insurance, and it's not because I don't necessarily like it, enjoy it. It's just because I have a focus, right? I want to do one thing and really specialize in that and build my team around what I do. So finding that agent that maybe only writes one business insurance policy a month might not do you the best favor, even if the price is the absolute least. Finding that agent that knows the right questions to ask you, can ask you those questions right up front. You give them those very nice, honest answers. You just explain the risk, right? When it comes to insurance, the biggest, most important thing is to work with that agent and tell them everything that you're concerned about, everything involved with the operation, and they really ideally should be part of your team and be viewed that way versus adversarial, us versus the insurance agent. We're really part of the team. And I think that's the biggest thing, is to find an agent that fits in with what your goals are, with your team, and where you're going with your business.
Well, Greg, this is great. It sounds like it really specializes in our industry, right?
Yeah, it does. It's what's important about that is when I initially spoke with Steve, and I'm not knocking my other insurance guy, but Steve had ideas that he said, what do you have this coverage? And I'm looking at it going, I don't think I do. And I think that was important because you have the knowledge that of the things that we need out here, and that's what's important, because we see a lot of guys on the groups. And Steve, you probably even seen it too. I'd actually think you have seen you comment as, guys, you're not getting the right coverage, and your insurance agent isn't giving you the right coverage, and that's important. It's really important for what we're trying to do. It's like we said about the personal line on your truck coverage, and you're going to get that letter in 6 months to a year, and you're out of luck. So. But that's been really important for Steve knowing what we need, and that's really important. So a couple of rapid fire questions here for you, but and they have no connection with each other. So let's see if we can remember them. Okay, so the importance of knowing what you can do and what you can't do. I don't know if you remember, you and I had this conversation. Somebody asked me to trim some trees for them, and I said, "Gee, I'm not sure." So I called you up and said, "What am I allowed to do, and what am I not allowed to do?" So the importance of knowing that, and then what should I pay, because you've said this a couple times, what do you think I should pay out of pocket for a mistake I made? Like a couple of years ago, a guy watered his lawn. I'm on his hill, slid right into the neighbor's fence. $500 damage. I just paid it out of pocket. So is there a number that you think, hey, $1,000 less, pay it out of pocket? And then the third question is for your selfishly for you, is what states do you cover?
Good question on that last one. We'll have to put a list together. I want to say it's all up and down the East Coast, in the Midwest, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, the big the Corn Belt, right? But to answer a couple of the other questions, specifically, what is the minimum price before I start to say, hey, what am I going to need to put a claim in for? My honest answer is about $1,000. If it's one of those things where you don't have that $1,000, you've never put in a claim, you have to put that claim in, go ahead and do it. But really, ultimately, that $500 to $1,500 loss, oftentimes, especially for landscape contractors, it's just not worthwhile. An example might be, I bent someone's fence. Well, how many fencing contractors do you know that might be able to come out there, take care of it for you at wholesale, quote unquote, cost? Or what if all you have to do is just buy the equipment or buy the item, put up that new fence panel yourself, and boom, 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 you're done. Instead of having a $1,500 claim, maybe it's a $250 claim, and you just ate the cost of labor, right? There's some things in the course of doing business that's just the cost of doing business. And, insurance policy should not be the first place that you look to get reimbursed for those small things. Ultimately, though, they're going to be there if you need them to. But what you should really ideally be waiting for is those opportunities where you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can handle this. I really need that insurance policy. I need that agent. I need that claims team. I need help here. I've had insureds have $250,000, $500,000 lawsuits all of a sudden pop up from an accident 18 months ago. They thought it was gone. They thought it was in their history. And all of a sudden now they're getting summoned into court. And that insurance policy is going to get you not only the attorney, but they're going to pay for that attorney. They're going to go out there to defend you. And if a judgment does not go in your favor, they're going to pay for that judgment too, as long as it's within your policy limits. And, I don't know about you, but I don't have $1 million laying around. And essentially, the way that I look at it for most owner operators is if about $1,000 to $1,500 a year can get you about $1 million of coverage, that's the cheapest $1 million you're ever going to get access to in your entire life. And I just can't say enough about how important it can be. You never need it until you need it. So for those of you that haven't used their insurance ever, you've gone 5 or 10 years, you've never made a claim, maybe your price has gone up, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. I don't like to say it. It's never a fun pill to say, hey, your price went up, $200 this year, you didn't do anything. Everything in the world is doing the same thing. I'm sure your prices have inflated 10, 20, 30% too. So it's just the nature of business nowadays. And Greg, I'm not going to lie, I missed that last that last question for you. We got lost in the sauce there.
It was actually the first one, I think. It was the importance of knowing what your insurance can do and what it can't do. Like I mentioned the tree trimming. And you told me, I believe it was, you can step up on a step ladder, but that's about as high as you can go, for example, on that one. So how important is it to know what you can do and what you can't do with your insurance?
Yeah, ultimately, it's really important. It's one of those things. There's a lot of things that fall into landscape gardening, right? Installing flower beds, doing little minimal landscape construction, doing like the raised bed construction, or maybe planting some trees in someone's yard. Even things like limited light voltage, like lighting solutions. Every company is going to be a little bit different, right? One company might be comfortable with all of those things, and then the next company says, okay, landscapers, you guys are solely people who are mowing and installing gardens and doing, a little bit of mulch, and that's it, right? But in general, the rule of thumb is basically landscapers are landscapers, lawn mowing, lawn maintenance, that's what it is. It sounds very clear. But if you're excavating, if you're digging, if you're going any deeper than maybe 6 inches, maybe a foot into the ground, and we're not talking about planting trees, we're talking about digging, doing French drains and these more complex things where you've got to call misdig before you even start digging. That right there, that would be an indication that you're starting to probably do something that your insurance policy, if you're a landscaper, is not designed to do. If you find yourself up in a tree wearing a harness, that's probably not a landscaper. You are probably now doing a tree service. And it can look a lot of different ways. It'd just be like a construction company that maybe they do interior carpentry and cabinets, and then all of a sudden they start to do roofing. If you're having a significant change in your operations, if it feels like you're doing something outside of what maybe a typical landscaping or lawn maintenance is doing, it's probably worthwhile to just call your agent, say, hey, am I covered for this? Or what do I need to do to get covered for this? And they'll give you that information.
Good to know. Thank you.
Greg, that was a great question. Before we kind of land the plane here, Steve, we got to do a pivot. Tell the listeners about TC Vortex here, because you're basically kind of a really like a 180 the other way. You're basically a meteorologist, aren't you?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a meteorologist by any certification. I did go to University of Michigan. I did take weather classes there. But yeah, TC Vortex, it is at its core, it is a severe weather consulting and emergency preparedness consulting company. When you see us on social media, we're doing the public notice, right? We're telling you about the weather upcoming. We're telling you when there's a big storm, snowstorms, and we're going to do that snow forecasting. But stepping out of what you see on that social media, what we really do is that more consulting side of things. If you have a snow removal company, and maybe your contract says over 6 inches, we're going to charge you a set rate versus at 3 inches, we're going to have a different rate there. And you've got a client that says, hey, I don't think we had 6 inches. You call me and we put together, we call it a forensic weather report, essentially, where we put together a report talking about specifically the conditions for that client, for that city. And we're going to put together something that says you got XYZ amount of snow. This is a fair bill, within some certain level of confidence, right? And we can put that kind of report together.
That's great. Greg, I had no idea that they really did that. I thought they were just predicting the weather. TC Vortex has a pretty big following on Facebook. And I would say, Greg, you have always said jokingly, Greg, right, that you kind of wanted to go into meteorology because that's where you can be get paid to be wrong.
God, yeah, well, I don't want to say that in front of Steve, but now that we have,
we're just joking.
But no, the meteorology. It's kind of interesting. Is there an app? Because I'm always looking at my phone. Evan and I last week, I got beat up by the rain again, but we're always looking at our phone. I'm looking at my phone and what the whatever's on the phone that they include with that, it's trying to tell me what the weather it is. Is this an app that the guys could use to let them know when the bad weather's coming and such, or how does that work?
Yeah, so when it comes to what we've got at TC Vortex, we've got an online weather center, and during the winter season for our contractors that we work together, oftentimes we'll even put together a commercial dashboard that's customized to them. But when you go onto our dashboard, you're going to be able to see upcoming 48 hours snow predictions. You're going to have a couple different regions within the state, what it might look like there temperature-wise, what hourly, when it's going to rain, when it's going to snow, things like that. And then you're also going to have other resources on there like traffic maps, traffic cams, get you an idea of your general service area. You can click around on the map. You can say, okay, in Roseville, this is what it's looking like. Oh, I've got to pop down into Warren, see what the traffic cam's down there. Oh, the snow's sticking down in Warren, but it's not in Roseville. Those are the types of resources you'll find there. And then outside of what we've got here for TC Vortex, what are the biggest recommendations? If there's folks out there looking for an easy way to kind of get some weather information at their fingertips, the honest answer is it's not always easy. Finding those, the National Weather Service, the historical pages that break down how much snow happened on XYZ dates, they're out there. It's pretty tough to find. So that's what we try to do at TC Vortex, is bring all that together, make it accessible. Because if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you're going to spend 2 or 3 hours looking for it just to lose it after you find it.
Nice.
Steve, it's been an honor. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest? I think we covered a lot. I don't think. What did we miss?
Ultimately, when it comes to insurance and it comes to landscaping and contractor businesses in general, just the number one thing that I can't stress enough is to find that agent that really wants to be part of your operation and be a partner with you. You shouldn't have to feel like, oh, I'm calling my insurance agent, this call is not going to go well, or he's going to tell me XYZ and it's going to end up not so good for me. We're really there to protect your business. We can't be as invested necessarily day to day. We can't be there, holding your hand through every step of the business, but we really do want to be a crux of the business. We want to have a good understanding of how things are going, what the plans are, because we can help put plans together for you that make sense for where your business is going. Because if you want to go over here, but your insurance policy is only going to let you go over there might be some conversations that we need to have between those 2 points to help you get there. And if you don't stop along the way to have those conversations with your agent, in this case with me, it's going to be a really bad spot if something bad happens and your insurance policies don't do what you assumed that they would do. But unfortunately, they did not.
I mean, this has been encouraging. We want to put your information in the show notes and description, but if guys want to get a hold of you, Steve,
if they want you to hold their hand.
Yeah, if you want to hold the hands of our guys and what they're mowing, how can they do that?
Well, I've got very wonderful soft hands. I try to do the best with the moisturizing, so it'll be a good experience.
Look at the size of my hands, as Trump said. Okay, anyways, go on.
It's a little more than we were looking for, Steve. So
this is comedy here in the show. We got to make the guys
just a bit.
We got to make the guys laugh on the more. This has been great, but how can guys get a hold of you?
The best way is our office in particular is with the 21st century. We really do like to set things up via text. Shoot our office a text message, 517-947-1200. You can text that office line 24/7. When we get in on a Monday morning, my team, we're going to sort through. We're going to set up phone calls. We're going to chat with you. We're going to have open and honest conversations. We're going to hit you between the eye. We're going to tell you what you need, how to get it, and if you want to get the assistance, get the partnership to get it through us, that's what we'll be there for. And then we'll be a partner for your business. But you can reach us at that 517-947-1200. My agency, we're Michigan Insurance and Financial Services. We're based out of Southeast Michigan, but we're licensed in a lot of states across the United States. So would be happy to help.
Well, there you go. You took the words out of my mouth, Steve. Thank you for coming on. And guys, give him a call, ask him questions. He's a plethora and well of knowledge. He's educated me because now I sound a whole lot smarter. So, Steve, thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Much appreciated. Always fun.